All right, let's head back out to Coast Guard City, USA, with the Grand Haven Coast Guard Festival well underway. Tanner Holbrook has been out there live all morning getting a private tour of the Cutter Mackinaw. Tanner, you've been getting some really great information out there about the work that it is that's happening on these ships.
You know, they do such a great job. We actually just got to meet the captain just a couple of minutes ago, and she was so appreciative of us for doing this entire tour this morning. And we want to show you a little bit more of this boat, of course. We are on the bridge. We've been all up and down the ship. So we've been in the mess deck. We've been in the... Where do the officers eat?
In the wardroom.
In the wardroom. And so we got to go in there earlier this morning, including the Engineering Control Center and, of course, the Damage Control Room, which is kind of where they repair some of the gear that's on here. Think of it like a, I don't know, like a workman's room where they kind of make repairs to equipment here on the ship. But up here, the bridge is really kind of like the coolest part, because this is what controls everything on the ship. And we have been getting the special treatment tour from Ensign Charlotte McCarthy. Thank you so much for hanging out with us still. I know we've been taking a lot of your time this morning, but you have given us some really good information. We've been across all of these panels, but before we were just on the air a couple minutes ago, you were showing us this little guy here, and this actually has kind of an important job. Tell us about it.
Yes. So we call this the squawk box, and it's our direct line of communication with main control. So they're the ones down in the engine room making sure everything's working down there, and they're also able to drive the ship from down there, but usually we drive up here. It's a lot easier to see what's going on. So we'll communicate with them, make sure everything's working, or, you know, pass control up.
Yeah, very cool. And of course, we've got some more stations over here.
Yes.
We also have BM3 Burke. Is that correct?
Yes.
He's over there. Burke. Yeah, there you go. He is over there hanging out, kind of doing the watch. And there was actually just another crew up here kind of doing the overnight watch to make sure everything's good. They do that every night on the bridge? What do they do?
Every night. So they monitor people coming on and off the bridge and on and off the boat. Just make sure nothing's going awry, and they're the ones looking at the control panels, seeing if any alarms are going off in the middle of the night, really keeping us safe.
Very cool. And this control system, I see you've got it nicely labeled for when the tours get to come through here, which, by the way, the bridge is included on the tour, but this is the DPS, or Dynamic Positioning System. What does this do?
So that is actually, we can look at this joystick right here. This is able to hold our exact position, so you can do auto heading, so you can type in a number and the boat will just stay at that heading using an autopilot of sorts, and then auto sway and auto surge. That really just stops all movement altogether, and you can use the joystick to kind of, you push it over and we'll just travel straight sideways onto a buoy.
Interesting. Very cool. And so let's talk about the boat itself, because this has a very important job. You guys are stationed primarily in Sheboygan, but what is the job of this cutter?
So the job of this cutter is to maintain all the buoys. You probably saw earlier some of the buoys on deck.
Yep.
So maintaining all of those, making sure they're in the right spot, that none of their chain is wearing away, that they haven't detached and gone off station. So we do that in the spring and fall, and then in the winter our primary mission is ice breaking and transporting cargo vessels throughout the Great Lakes, maintaining commerce throughout the Great Lakes.
Yeah, very cool. Kind of supporting the economy in that way, if you think about it. You are very new to this ship, right?
I am.
You're only here for about a month, but you've still gotten to know some of what crew life is like here on the Mackinaw. Can you talk about what it's like? What's it like to live here on this ship?
So the crew has been super welcoming. I've been able to learn so much in this past month. Crew life on the ship, we all work together, everyone has their assigned role, and everyone is super willing to teach you and just share their expertise with everyone else in the crew. Yeah,
and you're learning to actually be on the bridge here to be able to kind of maneuver this big vessel, right? What goes into that? What's kind of the training like on that?
So the training for that is you start small with all of those like side jobs that help people steer the boat. So maintaining logs of if we take on a small boat, or whenever we reach out on the radio to anyone. A lot of, we looked at this earlier, but some of the charts, tracking the chart and seeing how far off the track line we are, and guiding the person who's actually conning the boat to stay on that track line. And then another job is looking at the radar, which isn't currently running. But
I was upstairs earlier, and I know
Yes.
not to go beyond those red lines, because that's kind of like the no-no zone.
Yes.
But and you kind of learn to read the radars and things.
Yes. So reading the radars and communicating that with the con. So the biggest thing on the bridge is communication and making sure everyone has a whole big picture of what's going on.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's go back here, because I know that there are some more stations back here. This is kind of still engineering that we were looking at. This was another radar system.
It is another radar.
Yeah, this is a radar that is currently off. You can see by the black screen here. But this is actually pretty interesting to me. This is something that you guys no longer really use because of modern technology. What is this?
So this is our chart table, and we have a whole bunch of paper charts in these drawers. They're big charts of the area. We've kind of moved on to technology because it can update easier, and it's a lot quicker than drawing on if a buoy's missing. It'll just auto-populate on the chart. But yeah.
Very nice. But you still have these things on hand, right?
We do.
Is that because you guys, you need a backup system?
Yes.
Okay, very interesting that there are still some redundant systems in place just in case that were to happen. Very, very cool. Let's talk about your journey. Like, what is it like to be stationed on a cutter like this, and how does that journey start? Do you start in schooling? How do you get to be on a Coast Guard cutter?
So my path, I went through the academy. So I was at the Coast Guard Academy for 4 years. We have nav classes every so often, usually one a year, and we'll practice in simulators, driving boats, and reading paper charts, doing all that. And then over our cadet summers, we will go out and experience other cutters throughout the fleet.
That's pretty cool. What does a typical day in your life look like on this ship?
On this ship, we usually get into work around 7-ish, have breakfast with the crew, kind of talk through what we're doing for the day. We'll all meet up in the morning, which is super fun, and just pass any information that's happened. Then after that, we'll get to work. So whether that will be working on qualifications, or going on rounds of the ship, or just doing some admin stuff, making sure all the paperwork's settled.
Very cool. So there's a lot of different duties that you have to kind of do throughout the day. Right now, we were talking earlier, it's very easy because you guys are in port. You guys are a part of Coast Guard Festival. When you guys were driving in through the channel and into port, can you talk about your reaction when you just saw all of the folks around here to support you guys?
Yeah, so I was amazed. I was actually on the radar, and I was like, oh my goodness, there are so many boats out here. It was so cool to see everyone, and then people were lined all up on the pier.
Yeah, it's got to be like surreal, you know, seeing all those people come out here. You know, Coast Guard City, USA, they do it up big out here.
They do.
Well, coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to get more of a tour of the Coast Guard Cutter Mackinaw. I love that we're learning so much about this boat. By the way, you can see this boat in action. The tours start tonight at 1 o'clock, I should say this afternoon at 1, where you're going to be able to get to see parts of this boat and really get some of the tangible action here on the Mackinaw. But for now, we will send it to break. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes. You're watching 13 on Your Side Morning Plus.